I'm pleased to introduce our guest expert. He has a broad experience in various regulatory projects, such as computer system validation. And he's Joseph Turton, QA manager and also CSV specialist at the Knowlogy. Hi, Joseph. Thank you
Hello.
for your time. Yeah, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for having me. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session on unlocking the power of critical thinking. Another good buzzword in CSV, but it's worth saying that the principles can be applied to anything really, not just CSV, but I'm focusing on CSV today. So, as Angel said, I'm Joseph Turton, and I'll be guiding you through kind of today's discussion session. So I'll do a little bit more about me. So you know who's talking to you for the next 40 minutes. I work for a QA consultancy in the UK called Knowlogy. We work primarily across JLP, GCP, GCLP, or GCP labs, but have experience in all areas of kind of GXPs really. My role is as CSV specialist, so I kind of help our clients in any part of their CSV or data management processes, from coaching and mentoring to carrying out their full CSV. So can do whatever you need. I've been working in the industry now for about 13 years. I spent 12 of those years in a CRO in a variety of roles in operations, from an apprentice all the way to being a lab manager, where I kind of embedded CSV processes from scratch. So I know what it's like to try and convince people that CSV is the right thing to do and how to do it. Then just as COVID hit, I moved into IT as a developer, where I kind of helped manage and support the systems that we built in the organization. But that's enough about me. The training today is designed for professionals at kind of an intermediate to advanced level, focusing on enhancing their approach to CSV through the lens of critical thinking, which is just kind of thinking rationally, applying logic and reason to these approaches instead of just kind of picking up a procedure and following it blindly. So whether you're directly involved in CSV activities or overseeing kind of regulatory processes and things like that, today's session should help you improve your strategies and kind of decision-making processes. But yeah, and as Angel said, feel free to drop any questions in the chat that you have as you go along, and we'll kind of answer as many as we can at the end. So let's have a quick look at what we'll cover today. So our session is structured to not only kind of deepen your understanding of critical thinking, so we'll talk about what that means, what it is, within the context of CSV, but also equip you with some kind of practical tools and insights from me about how you can apply this directly to your work. First, we'll introduce the concept of critical thinking and discuss its importance in the CSV process, and setting the stage for how it can transform your validation activities. Following that, we'll move through into the CSV lifecycle, which I know is different for everyone, but the kind of basic principles are there. We'll explore various stages where critical thinking is not just beneficial, but I think it's necessary, particularly as we go forward into the future. Technology changes, and I'll share strategies to help you identify and kind of leverage these opportunities effectively. We'll then move on into some kind of engaging case studies, hopefully. These are based on kind of real scenarios that have highlighted how critical thinking has been successfully applied to solve what common CSV challenges. We'll then discuss strategies to add critical thinkings within your team. This section is designed to provide you with kind of actionable tools and techniques that can help you promote a culture of analytical and evaluative thinking. And then we'll wrap up how to integrate these strategies into your daily practices, and ensure that your validation processes are both robust and compliant. And then we'll have the Q&A session. But before we start, let's go to our first poll to see where we're at with people's critical thinking understanding.
All right, so the first poll is, we need something, you're voting about understanding critical thinking. So before today's session, how would you rate your understanding of the role of critical thinking in computer system validation? All right, so we can see that second, the answer B is I had a basic understanding is leading. with 48%. Joseph, this is what you expected, Joseph.
Yeah, I think most people seem to have a kind of a basic understanding of where it's going, but I'm struggling to see actually what happens. I can't see the outcomes, but that's fine. Yeah, I kind of expected most people would have a basic understanding, or have no awareness at all. So, there we go. Yeah, that was a way of confident. Yeah, not confident in its application. There's a few people that've got a comprehensive understanding, so that's good. That's definitely an interesting split there. So I'm looking forward to some of the questions at the end. People can challenge me. I like it. Cool. I'll move on.
Perfect.
So let's start by defining what we mean by critical thinking, particularly in the realms of CSV. So critical thinking involves analyzing and evaluating information and arguments, understanding kind of logical connections between ideas, identifying, constructing, and evaluating arguments, and solving problems systematically, which sounds really simple, but lots of people struggle with it. And it's just one of those things, it's easier done in your head than it is to write it down. And we all know you've got to write it down. So in the context of CSV, this means not just following your validation protocols blindly, but actively questioning and kind of assessing every step, every data point, every action, every outcome for maximum kind of reliability and efficiency, as well as compliance. So why is this important? In CSV, the stakes are incredibly high. So the integrity of our data directly impacts the safety and efficacy of like pharmaceutical products or medical devices, or the outcome of laboratory studies. So by applying critical thinking, we can enhance our ability to ensure that the systems perform as intended, consistently and safely, and meeting all the regulatory requirements while not being a huge money and time pit for organizations. Because I know lots of small organizations can really struggle with completing CSV because it's just it's a tick box exercise and get no value out of it. So let's break it down into three components really. So we're talking about analyzing, which is about understanding the data and the systems at a kind of a granular level. Evaluating, which involves assessing methods and the outcomes critically, and as well as creating solutions, which is about innovating and improving our CSV process to be more efficient and effective as they go along. It's worth bearing in mind you're never going to get your CSV process right on your first SOP version. It's never going to be perfect. So just starting is often the first hurdle. So keeping these components in mind as we go along will allow us to kind of broaden your understanding of the CSV lifecycle with a clearer focus on where and how we can apply critical thinking effectively. So kind of keep these thoughts in mind as we move on. It's not just hopefully it's not just about giving you kind of abstract ideas, but hopefully giving you some practical tools that we can help use in your day-to-day lives. So now hopefully you understand kind of what critical thinking means, or at least what it means to me. So let's now look at how it applies to the life cycle of a computerized system, or the computerized system validation process, and where it can make the most impact. So each stage here presents unique challenges and opportunities for applying critical thinking to ensure robust validation. Your CSV processes may not look like this, but the principles of each process should be similar. So you should have a planning stage, you should have a specification stage, design and development stage, testing, implementation, and kind of maintenance steps. Your process within your organization might look different. You might have different names, but the kind of the core principles of each of those things should be there. So the first stage is planning. So the planning phase, critical thinking here involves identifying potential risks early and defining clear and achievable objectives. So here you're not only just kind of setting the groundwork, but also anticipating possible future challenges. So preparing you to kind of handle them effectively. So identifying risks, having a clear scope of your project and the system that you want to get. In the specification stage, it's crucial to understand that all the requirements are not only kind of complete themselves, but also unambiguous. And this is where I see lots of challenges, is ambiguous its requirement specifications, where it means one thing to an IT professional, where it means something completely different to someone that's in operations or a QA professional. So thinking ahead and understanding how specifications might be interpreted differently and clarifying them from the outset, so having representatives from all sides of the coin is really important. So have your users, have your QA personnel, your IT professionals, and anyone else who might be relevant to kind of get their feedback and opinions. The more work you put in on the specification sides and the development and the planning, the easier it gets later on. So as we move into design and development, evaluating your design choices, excuse me, becomes kind of essential. So reflecting and thinking about what you are doing and what you're designing. So you should ask yourselves, what are the choices, what are the best choices for our needs? What future changes might we need to accommodate? What foresight prevents costly redesigns and ensures the system's kind of long-term viability? So don't just think, oh, we've got this problem to solve now. Think about the future as well. So testing is where kind of your critical analysis skills come in. So this is where documenting your rationale and being really logical comes to the fore, really. So each test result should be rigorously analysed, not just for compliance, but for what it actually tells you about the system and how it behaves under different scenarios. So scenario testing is very important. Ensuring your testing methods are valid and cover all the necessary aspects is key as well. So don't just kind of blindly follow testing plans when you realise that it's got a big gap when you actually try and implement them. During implementation, monitoring is really important. Any deviations from the plan should be addressed swiftly to prevent them from escalating, and being proactive and ensuring that you're kind of reflecting and monitoring what's going on and how you're managing risks and stuff can make the transition or the implementation of the system smoother. Finally, maintenance, which is, I think, periodic reviews and things like that, kind of becoming in more and more these days. And it kind of mostly shifts the focus to kind of continuous improvement. So regular reviews, compliance checks help you kind of stay on top of the ever-changing regulatory landscape and your ever-changing internal requirements and scope, and any kind of emerging risks that come out of it. So and it kind of ensures that you remain compliant as well as performing optimally. So you can use it as a stepping stone to help improve your systems, help improve the way you do your work, rather than just having one approach that kind of drags you down and never looking back and never changing it. So in each of these stages, kind of critical thinking or applying logic and rationale not only kind of enhances your processes, but kind of builds a stronger, more reliable system and hopefully helps you save time. So let's move on to the next poll question.
All right, so let's jump into the second poll. So which aspect of CSV do you find most challenging in applying critical thinking?
I'm definitely interested to see this one.
Yeah.
Planning, risk assessment, writing unclear and ambiguous specifications. If everyone's puts B, please, it'll make me feel better. That's what I see all the time. And using validated test results. Yeah.
Okay, so far writing clear and unambiguous specification is leading.
Is it? That's because I said everyone vote B, right?
Yeah.
I'm skewing the results. No, biased.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think we can end the poll right now.
Look, so what if we can't? Planning and risk assessment, writing clear and ambiguous specifications. Okay, yeah. Risk assessment. Okay, so I didn't expect risk assessment to be so high up there, but I guess it does make sense. With all the new people pushing risk-based approaches. So yeah, no, that's interesting. Analyzing test results. It's the bottom. Implement it. No, that's definitely interesting.
Critical thinking is very related to applying risk management. Right?
Oh yeah, they're hand in hand, exactly. Yeah, you can't do one without the other, really. So thinking logically works both for risk and and yeah, everything really.
Okay,
Cool.
let's move on.
Indeed. Let me just make sure I can actually control my slides. There we go. So now let's look at some kind of real world scenarios where critical thinking has made a significant difference in kind of the CSV processes in some organizations that I've seen. These examples may seem really simple and obvious, but you'll be surprised at the number of times I see the same errors and challenges that are in these scenarios. So the first case study, which revolves around implementing a kind of a new automated tracking system in a pharmaceutical environment. The system was crucial for enhancing the kind of the traceability of raw materials throughout the manufacturing process. The company aimed to replace like an older manual tracking system, all of it, to increase efficiency and reduce human error. However, introducing any new systems involves risk, particularly in obviously such a highly regulated environment. The primary challenge was ensuring that the system could be implemented without disrupting the existing manufacturing process, with it being manual versus electronic. So there was a significant kind of operational risk from the downtime which the organization wanted to avoid, because it could lead to delays in production and maybe even some non-compliances. So to address this, the project team employed a kind of a failure modes and effects analysis, or FMEA. So people will talk about risk assessment. If you don't know what that is, have a Google. Right at the early stages, so at the beginning of a system design, they applied an FMEA, which included these risks. This allowed them to kind of systematically identify the failure points, the causes, and the kind of the effects that it could have on the subsequent processes. And by prioritizing these risks based on their severity, the likelihood, the team could implement a targeted mitigation strategy before rolling out the system. And as a result, the implementation was smooth-ish, with minimal disruptions. Nothing's ever perfect. And the system effectively enhanced the traceability and efficacy of the manufacturing process and saved them lots of time, lots of money, and was worth it in the end. So this case is there to kind of illustrate how critical thinking and proactive risk assessment, as Angel's comment about them being hand in hand, kind of clearly illustrates how it can lead to successful system implementations in what can be quite complex regulatory environments. So having seen how critical thinking aids in risk assessment, let's explore a second case study, which focuses on design optimization for long-term compliance. So our second case study shifts the focus to a biotechnology firm that was facing challenges in designing an electronic record management system. The aim was not only to meet the current compliance requirements, but also to accommodate future regulatory changes as well as business growth. So the electronic records are crucial in biotech for maintaining data integrity and supporting regulatory submissions. However, regulations and internal requirements evolve, and the company needed a system that could evolve similarly. They were a small company, but they needed something that could grow with them. So there was something that was fit for purpose now and for the future, or would be easily changed in the future. So that's quite a significant challenge, really, is trying to plan for the future. So they need to design a system that is robust enough for today's needs, but needs to be flexible enough to adapt to future unknown requirements. So this kind of required a foresight and innovative thinking to avoid costly overhauls down the line. So the solution was to adopt an iterative design process. This involved having key stakeholders from regulatory departments, QA, IT, operations, other stakeholders, management, things like that from the outset, and had a thorough continuous improvement and continuous feedback and multiple design iterations. The team developed a system that was kind of had modular components that could be easily updated and replaced, as well as a robust change management process that all stakeholders had involvement in developing. So they built it in small parts so they could change as a system and the organization changed, and if regulatory requirements changes, they could pick and choose the relevant parts, and then had a robust change management process when they wanted to change that in the future. And it's one that everyone understood, not just someone in QA forcing people to do change management, or someone in IT pushing change management, things like that. So this approach not only ensured kind of compliance at launch, but also reduce the impact of the need for future system redesigns. So it was a lot easier and a lot quicker for them to adjust and change the system as they went forward. The system's adaptability allowed them to swiftly accommodate regulatory changes, and I think it demonstrates kind of a power of logical and rational critical thinking in your design optimization. So let's move on to strategies to enhance critical thinking. So having seen kind of critical thinking in action through some very generalized and basic case studies, let's now explore how we can enhance these skills within your teams yourself. So critical thinking isn't just like an individual skill, it's a team capability that can significantly improve your CSV outcomes. But before that, let's have another poll. Right, polls. Poll number 3.
Yeah, all right. So let's jump into the first poll. So which critical thinking tool or technique will you most likely implement in your computer system validation processes? Would you use root cause analysis, Six Sigma methodologies, or reflective practice sessions with your team, or otherwise, yeah, you're not sure, so you need to learn more. So which one of those would you vote? Let's see your answers.
I've added an other in there. I'm sure there's many other ways to to do this.
Yeah. So let's see who's leading. Yeah, what's leading the voting? Yeah, I'm not sure, so I need to learn more about these tools.
That's not a surprise.
Yeah, yeah, I remember, Joseph, yeah, that critical thinking was published in the GAM 5 second edition, right? So I think there's an annex there. So you can find some insights there, a lot of yeah, theoretical, yeah, insights. But it's difficult. It's to how to apply that, right?
Yeah, it's how do you don't know what you don't know, isn't it? It's one of those scenarios. It's a bit of chicken and egg. Well, yeah, we talk about some further reading later on, so we can point you in the direction of some places that can help you in this one, and hopefully this kind of training session will help make you more sure, at least point you in the right direction. There's more Six Sigma on there than I anticipated, so that's good. Because I feel like I've not actually seen anyone doing any kind of Six Sigma methodologies recently, but it's really interesting. Okay, cool. Right.
Good. Let's move on then.
Yeah.
Thank you for voting.
So let's start by focusing how you can foster a questioning culture within your teams. So this is kind of the foundation of critical thinking, whatever you use it for. And this is encouraging everyone to ask why, how, and what, and how can this be improved? And in practical terms, that means creating an environment where you've got an open dialogue, encouraging your teams during meetings and discussions to prompt your team members to voice their concerns and suggestions, and this can be structured into meeting agendas and so in practical terms, this means creating an environment where you've got an open dialogue, where it's not just expected, but encouraged for people to say why and who and what, and question things, and have this during meetings and open discussions, prompt your team members to voice their concerns and their suggestions, and this can be structured into your team meetings as a specific agenda point to ensure that we will have open and honest discussions. This is easier said than done. And this can only be implemented by ensuring that no matter what their experience or importance of the person, that they feel heard. Another key aspect is to recognise and reward those who contribute to improvements by identifying potential issues and efficiencies. And this could be through formal recognition programs or just simple acknowledgements in team meetings. Importantly, establish a policy where there are no penalties for questioning decisions or processes. Everyone should feel safe to express their doubts or concerns without fear of repercussion. This will empower your team to think critically, because they'll have no emotions weighing them down about every aspect of CSV or whatever you're trying to do, and foster a culture of continuous improvement. So moving on to kind of training and workshops, which are crucial tools for enhancing critical thinking skills. Regular training sessions should not only focus on CSV processes, but on the development of analytical skills needed to kind of execute those processes efficiently. So that's thinking about things logically and rationally, and how to rationalize things and how to write them down in a sense, in a way that makes sense. And this is important if you're in a larger organization when you've got lots of people involved in CSV, as well as if you're in a small organization where there was only one or two of you doing the CSV. Having regular sessions with the relevant stakeholders, even if they don't understand the CSV, is just as important. So you can gather different viewpoints and use those to kind of refine your requirements and your process. So consider hosting workshops that specifically address real-world CSV challenges faced by your team. So if you've got a problem that you don't know how to solve, or you want different opinions on, get everyone in the room, and the workshops can be interactive, so you can have proper problem-solving sessions with people where the team works together to apply critical thinking to actual scenarios within your operations. The next one, using case studies in these sessions can be really effective because it kind of gives people a grounding and an understanding of what's going on, and it allows team members to engage with like concrete examples and think through the issues critically, discussing and kind of debating the best approaches to solve the problem. This kind of hands-on approach helps solidify critical thinking as a kind of a regular practice in your daily activities. Next, let's discuss the importance of utilizing specific tools designed to enhance critical thinking. So tools such as root cause analysis, and I mean like proper RCA, not just identifying the problem as a lack of training, which is flagged all the time, or Six Sigma methodologies. There's lots of different methodologies you can use, and I would recommend research this further if anyone's interested in Six Sigma. They're all excellent for breaking down problems to the kind of the fundamental elements, ensuring that your team not only knows about these tools, but is also proficient in using them is really important. This might involve kind of dedicated training sessions or on-the-job training during actual CSV projects. I can't underpin the importance of kind of actual practical experience in doing these things. It just helps wonders. So yeah, make these tools kind of readily available and encourage people to use them in both kind of planning and troubleshooting stages of the project. Regularly use these frameworks to help standardize the way your team approaches problems, so everyone's kind of working from the same hymn sheet, ensuring a consistent and thorough kind of analytical process that enhances decision making and problem solving capabilities. Yeah, I can't overstate really how much I learned from kind of starting my first CSV project to now. I think lots of the clients that I've worked with kind of struggle to just start their CSV, and as they want to kind of get it right the first time, and it's just not going to happen. You're not going to get it perfect the first time, so to kind of jump into it and just reflect and think. So another vital strategy in cultivating a culture of critical thinking within your CSV team or even your organization is to embrace kind of collaborative problem solving. We probably reflected on this a bit more earlier as well. This approach not only kind of enhances the problem solving capability of your team, but builds like a stronger, more cohesive work environment. So collaborative problem solving allows you kind of to tap into people's diverse skills, their experiences, different perspectives. When everyone kind of contributes, you can uncover kind of unique insights and different innovative solutions that might not have emerged if you were kind of on your own in your little silo, and powering through individually. To implement this effectively, organizations will organize regular sessions where your team can come together to kind of tackle specific CSV challenges. These can be structured but flexible. So you want to foster kind of an open conversation and discussion to allow some kind of creative juices to get flowing. So you want some creative problem solving, and you can employ different techniques. So you can use brainstorming, fishbone diagrams, etc. There's lots of different techniques to help kind of get ideas and thoughts flowing. It's kind of crucial to create an environment where every team member feels valued and encouraged to contribute. So recognize and celebrate contributions from all team members, which helps motivate continuous improvement and engagement. And that's primarily the main thing, is continued engagement throughout this process. inclusivity not only enhances kind of problem-solving processes, but also helps foster kind of a positive team culture. For example, when you're faced with a complex validation issue, bring your team together and use kind of a fishbone diagram to break down the potential causes. This method not only helps you identify the root cause, but also promotes a thorough understanding of the issue among the team, and that ensures that everyone understands the solution that you've implemented, and it ensures that that solution is well-rounded and effective. By making collaborative problem solving as part of your CSV processes, you can not only enhance the effectiveness of it, but also contribute to a more kind of dynamic and innovative team environment. Let's move on to the next poll. This is poll number 4.
All right. So how often, this is more related to training and development, right? So how often does your organization provide training on critical thinking and analytical skills?
Definitely interesting to see the outcome of this one, because I don't think I've been anywhere where, I know maybe one place I've seen where people actually do kind of analytical skills as some kind of formal training. But we all kind of do these things in our head anyways. When most people are scientists, you know, trained to think in a certain way.
All right. So yeah, let's end the poll and share the results.
Yeah, so look.
Okay, so 53% is never.
Yeah, that's not a surprise.
Yeah.
Barely less than once a year. Okay, that's still quite a big number that was less than once a year. I suppose that could mean at some point in the last decade. Occasionally, it's next. Okay. It's good to see that some people are out there are getting some regular training on it. That means people are picking this up, which is great. Cool. Let's move on.
Yeah, good. So let's continue, Joseph.
So integrating critical thinking into CSV. So having kind of equipped ourselves with strategies to enhance critical thinking. Now let's discuss how to integrate this approach into our actual daily CSV activities. So before we give you some ideas on how you can do it, let's talk about what you can actually do on the ground. The goal here is to kind of make critical thinking a natural part of how you operate and enhancing both your effectiveness and your compliance. So let's focus on the fundamental of aspect of critical thinking into your daily operations. So enhancing CSV decision making is effective decision making is crucial. So as each choice we make can significantly impact the success of the validation and compliance of the validation process. First and foremost, I'm going to sound like a broken record, it's important to encourage a culture where every decision is critically evaluated and there's no risk around challenging that. So ask yourself and your team to consider the potential impacts of each decision and on the system validation. This isn't about kind of doubting every choice or waving the finger, but it's about understanding the implications and ensuring that decisions are made with a clear, comprehensive understanding of the potential impacts. So to support this, I highly recommend implementing kind of reflective practices. And these are kind of scheduled reviews where the team can gather to kind of reflect on recent decisions and their outcomes. It's a chance to look back and ask, did the decision achieve what we expect? How could we have done this differently? This practice not only kind of aids the learning from past decisions, which is the best place, but also kind of refining your future decision-making processes. Reflective practices can transform how your team approaches problems and makes its decisions. Kind of instills a habit of thinking critically at each step, about each step taken, and fostering a deeper insight and a kind of more of a deliberate, informed choices rather than just kind of diving into a solution without thinking. This kind of ongoing cycle of action and reflection is a really powerful tool in continuous improvement and continuous improvement in CSV. So generally in your life, you can use reflection as a continuous improvement tool. So I encourage you to start kind of scheduling regular reflective practice sessions with your team to kind of discuss the decisions you've made, the reasons behind them, and their outcomes. This will not only kind of enhance your team's decision-making capabilities, but boost your overall system validation effectiveness. With a robust approach to kind of daily decision making established, let's move on to how we can further harness critical thinking through practical documentation. So documentation isn't just a regulatory requirement. It should be a strategic tool for kind of critical analysis and ensuring robust validation. So it shouldn't just be, oh, we've got to complete all this paperwork because the regulations say we should, or the process tells us we need to. So it's essential to view documentation through the lens of critical thinking. So this means that every piece of documentation should be more than just a checkbox for compliance. It should serve as a comprehensive reflection of the CSV processes. Each document should clearly explain why behind the actions and the decisions that have made and the results, not just what. To enhance the kind of the quality of your documentation, encourage your team to consistently question and justify the choices documented. This approach can ensure that your documentation provides detailed rationale for each decision, making it easy to understand and evaluate your CSV processes during audits or even reviews. Particularly when you've got larger teams, it's definitely more useful to have the rationale documented. It also kind of fosters a culture of kind of transparency and accountability. Implementing this by providing templates and guidelines that kind of prompt the authors to include justifications for the decision. For example, when documenting a test result, require an explanation of why a particular test method was chosen or what the implications of the test outcomes are. This kind of not only enhances the documentation value, but also encourages the authors to kind of think critically about their work, think about what they're doing before they actually do it. A critical tip is to periodically review and discuss these documents in team meetings, focusing on the quality of the analysis presented. This is not only kind of helps improve individual skills, but also evaluates the overall quality of your CSV documentation. So periodic reviews is the way forward. By transforming how we approach documentation, we not only kind of meet the compliance requirements, but more effectively, but also enhance our ability to kind of perform critical analysis and make things quicker and easier for ourselves. So now let's talk about structured problem solving, which is another key strategy to embedding critical thinking. So problem solving sessions. These sessions are designed to tackle like ongoing and anticipated challenges, of ensuring continuous improvement and a robust system validation. So the key to successful problem solving sessions lie in their structure. It's not just about gathering the team to discuss issues and point fingers. It's more about the systematic approach that to guide and think about issues and challenges and problems. So this kind of structured approach helps peel back the layers of a problem, ensuring that we kind of not only address just the root cause, but the symptoms as well. One effective methodology you can use for this is the 5 whys technique. I use this quite a lot. And this involves asking why multiple times until you uncover the underlying cause of a problem. It's really straightforward, really obvious. I think probably everyone has heard of it or used it in their life. However, using it effectively is really important, and just keep asking why. It's kind of straightforward yet really powerful at diving deeper into the issues you have at hand. Another tool we often employ is the fishbone diagram, also known as the cause and effect diagram, which can help visually map out potential causes of a problem across the various categories, leading to a more comprehensive analysis. To implement these sessions effectively, schedule regular meetings. I'm saying this far too much. Specifically dedicated to problem solving, where team members can bring forward any issues they're encountering, and prepare a template or a digital workspace where problems can be logged and tracked through to resolution, so everyone has visibility of them, incorporating findings from the sessions that you have as well. The benefits of these problem-solving sessions can be huge. They not only help you implement solving immediate problems, but also kind of foster a proactive approach to potential challenges, reducing the risk of kind of future issues and problems. Moreover, these sessions serve as a great learning opportunity for the team, enhancing their analytical skills and deepening their understanding of CSV processes. By regularly engaging in structured problem solving, we can ensure that our CSV processes and practices are not only compliant, but also optimized for like efficiency and effectiveness. Yeah, so let's move on to how peer reviews and cross-functional teams and collaborations can enhance the team further. Submitting. So integrating critical thinking into your CSV processes. So let's focus here on the peer reviews and cross-functional teams. So these are collaborative strategies that are really important to kind of broadening the scope of your analysis and enhancing the kind of the quality of the work that you're doing. Different opinions are always good in my mind, whether it be a business one or otherwise. So peer reviews in CSV involve team members reviewing each other's work to ensure completeness, accuracy, and compliance. Sounds obvious, but beyond these kind of basics, the peer review serve as an excellent opportunity for team members to kind of challenge each other's assumptions, ask questions, provide constructive feedback, and this process not only helps catch errors and omissions early, but also drives a deeper understanding and appreciation of the kind of the CSV processes among your team. Moving to cross-functional teams, like the integration of kind of diverse departments, such as your quality assurance, regulatory teams, IT, operations, incorporating these into your CSV activities at all points can provide a richer and more comprehensive perspective of the validation tasks. Each department brings their own expertise, their own viewpoints, which can highlight different aspects of potential problems and uncover kind of innovative solutions that might not be apparent to a more homogeneous group. To implement these strategies kind of effectively, establish regular reviews, saying there's a lot, as part of the CSV workflow. So create guidelines that can scope the objectives of these things to ensure that you're not just having a free-flowing meeting, but create guidelines that define the scope and objectives of the reviews to ensure they're productive and focused. So for the same with cross-functional collaborations, kind of initiate joint workshops where team members can from different backgrounds can focus on different areas and discuss and plan the validation strategies. Facilitate these sessions with activities that kind of encourage open dialogue and idea sharing, so we'll get to know each other and get on. The benefits of incorporating peer reviews and cross-functional teams into CSV processes is significant. I can't say this enough, especially when you're building your requirement specification. They not only kind of improve the robustness of your validation, but kind of help foster a culture of continuous improvement and collective responsibility. And I think that's something we're kind of missing at the moment in CSV, is a collective responsibility. Moreover, these practices can lead to more innovative approaches to CSV and changes in the way we do things, as diverse inputs often result in more creative solutions. So yeah, you can leverage the kind of the strengths and perspectives of your different teams and the different backgrounds that we have through peer reviews and cross-functional collaboration. You can ensure that your CSV practices are not only kind of the bare minimum, but also kind of dynamic and adaptable to regulatory changes. So let's kind of wrap up, and we'll move to the further reading section. So yeah, for anyone that's kind of studious and wants some more reading, here's a list of guidance that kind of refers to kind of critical thinking or risk-based approaches that can be used when applying these kind of practices. Obviously, there's a lot more there on approaches to Six Sigma, but to Google that yourself. So yeah, so the first one is actually it's Q9, which I imagine most people are really familiar with now. It's the Bible, I think, for risk management in quality. There's so many different approaches in there that can help you. We've got GAMP, which is the highest tier of all CSV, but there's lots of structures and frameworks in there that can help you with this. Same with the Good Practice Guide on Data Integrity by Design. It's really useful. And the CSA guidance has come out of the FDA, which is probably a bit controversial for some people, but again, it's probably one of the only places that actually refers to kind of critical and evaluative thinking at the moment. So definitely worth having a look. and then we'll move on to the last poll before the Q&A.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. So this is the last poll. So what additional topics related to computer system validation would you be interested in for future training sessions?
I wonder where this one goes.
Yeah, would you like to know more about advanced data integrity and compliance, or tools and technologies for enhancing computer system validation, or yeah, know more about case studies and real world problem solving in CSV, or yeah, regulatory updates such as the CAM5 second edition and the implication in CSV. All right. So with 41% case studies and real world problem solving in CSV.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose seeing how everyone's doing it is always the go-to, isn't it? So yeah, that's a big lead there, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the
Okay, so
practical side.
yeah. I think that's what most people are probably struggling with, isn't it? When I said earlier on, people struggle to start because it makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay, that's definitely interesting. So more case studies it is then, Angel.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's real case studies are very interesting to anyone. Yeah, this is what the guidelines that does not give you
Yeah, it's very
information.
true, isn't it? Yeah.
Good. All right. So thank you very much for voting. Very interesting poll questions, Joseph. So yeah, let's move now to the Q&A session. Yeah, we have finished the training part, and now it's your opportunity to engage directly with Joseph. We have already received some questions, but if you need more clarification on any other questions that you may have, this is the right time to post your questions. You can use the Q&A button. And then afterwards, Joseph will do his best to provide comprehensive answers, right?
I'll try my best.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So let's start by the first one we have received from Sribash. So do you suggest to use FMEA before preparing the user requirement specifications for CSV? So
No, as I'd suggest when you build your specification and you've got your specification, consider how you can implement it then. So you built your specification and then do it. So right at the beginning of your process, implement FMEA, and kind of it's an iterative process. So you would do it as you go along. So you kind of start with what you know at the beginning, however small that may be, and as you're kind of going through, continually add and update as you go along.
yeah. A second question related to CAM5 is, what does critical thinking mean in CAM5 second edition?
A very good question. I think it's probably more related to risk-based approaches and kind of applying logical and rational thinking to anything. So when we're discussing risk-based approaches, all that really means, at least in my head, is that you're kind of laying out what's the highest risks, why they're the highest risks, and what's most important, and what you're going to do about it. So I think that's probably the best way to kind of summarize it really quickly. You can go into lots of detail on GAM5, and I'm sure that we can do a whole presentation on just critical thinking in GAMP. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So we have a question from Comfort. It is in the chat, right? So Comfort says, if I am procuring a system I have not used or interacted with before, how would it be best to, how best would I perform this risk assessment, especially while applying the FMEA?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So this is where mapping out your requirements as if you weren't purchasing a specific system, so you were going to ambiguously pick a system. So say you map out your process and say, I need a system that can do X, Y, and Z, rather than I have a system that can do X, Y, and Z, and then think about the risks that are related to those requirements. So you need a system that's a document management system. So you'll need it to manage your SOPs, and that means it needs to have these version numbers and this kind of workflow. You can kind of make that generic enough that you can obviously buy a system that meets the requirements, and then think about the risks that can come along with it, and then update as you go along. And that's the thing about these things is review and reflect, because things will change as you pick your system, and that doesn't mean the risks you identified at the beginning were wrong. They've changed. So I'd say review and reflect is probably the answer.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we have a question from Jeffrey. This is in the chat also. Could you share an example case studies of CSV collaboration with other department? Probably a high overview, Joseph. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the failings where CSV, or people struggle with CSV at the moment, is where they're kind of an IT professional, say, that's just working on their own, trying to implement CSV without anyone else. It just doesn't work, or it's just a pain. So I've got scenarios where I can talk about that. Maybe that's one for another session. But the only way to do it is to kind of foster that culture that we spoke about, is to make people communicate, to get the right people involved at the beginning or as soon as you can.
Yeah, I think this is a very good point, because critical thinking is very powerful for those companies that want to establish a continuous learning company, right? You have to you have to adapt continuously to changes in
the only way to really do that is to have everyone involved, and every department that's involved in compliance viewpoints in these things, all the relevant stakeholders, whether from say your clinicians, the people that are filling out the forms, adding the data and all that kind of stuff, all the way to the IT guys that are managing the data, the infrastructure, and that kind of stuff, to the QA professionals that are having to audit this information. You can't do it on your own in your little silo. It just doesn't work. It's not effective.
Yeah, it is. All right. Okay, let me check. We have a question from Rob. This is quite, let's see.
Oh dear.
We apply critical thinking to choosing suitable team members for CSV projects, other projects.
No, that's a very good question. Actually, I hadn't considered that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you do require a certain mindset, I suppose, when you're doing computer system validation. To effectively anyway, so you kind of have to think rationally, and have a certain kind of analytical approach in your brain, and be willing to kind of just try stuff and see how it goes, which takes a certain personality. So I suppose you can kind of apply that to when you're interviewing team members, is kind of gauge what the kind of innate talents are in terms of risk management and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely an interesting one to see. I've not tried that actually.
Okay. All right. It's 4 minutes time, so we can cover probably 2 more questions. So we have a question from Madavi. So what should be the CSV methodology for software as for a SaaS system?
That's a pretty open-ended question. Well, we'll go to the basic principles of CSV, which is essentially you have to demonstrate that whatever you've got is fit for purpose. And the way you do that is have a series of requirements, some testing, and then some kind of sign off from the relevant person. So there's 1,000 ways to do CSV, even in SaaS. And I'd say as long as you have a base set of requirements from everyone's perspective, not just the person that's developed the software, from the users as well, and you demonstrate how your software as a service is meeting those requirements through testing that involves both kind of the vendor and the user. Because I think that's a thing that's probably missing at the moment. Is lots of users aren't testing their software as a service; they're kind of just accepting that they're working, or they're accepting documentation from the vendor. And then as long as there's sign off within the relevant organization, I think that's the kind of the basic, very broad overview of how to validate SaaS. But it's again, that's probably a day workshop.
Yeah,
If you've
sure.
got specific questions, you can probably send it to me
Yeah.
through LinkedIn, but I'll pay later. Whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Um, what about covering one additional question, Joseph?
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Okay. How can one incorporate requirements for GDPR in validations? Do you have experience on that?
Yes, I've been recently actually been considering this. So the way we've done it is when you're building your requirements specification at the beginning is to break down the requirements of GDPR in your specification. There might not be regulatory requirements in the sense of kind of GCP or GMP or GLP regs, but there are still requirements that the system has to meet. So I would break them down in the specification. The bits that you're important about, highlight which parts of the data are obviously protected and personal, and that are higher risk, and then test them appropriately and test the controls around them appropriately.
Mhm. Okay, nice. So I think we have just covered most of them. Yeah, I want to appreciate everybody for being here. Thank you very much for your participation in this session and also in the Q&A session. Special thanks to Joseph for this training. I think you have covered yeah, a general overview of critical thinking, how we can use that in our companies, right? So remember that we are going to prepare a recap page, and you will receive it with the Q and with the questions and the answers, and also the training recording. All right. So thank you very much for being here, and hope to see you in the next training session next month. All right. Have a nice day and goodbye.
Cheers. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.